Peace to the kings and queens, brothers and sisters, nagoos, nagas, our souls, our sets, or whatever you want to call yourselves. Be that. Just make sure y'all know who that is. I'm gonna love you anyway. Now, the island, or shall I say island, of Haiti, A-Y-I-T-I, Haiti, also known as the land of mountains, the highland of the Highlanders, just outside the waters of Cuba, Jamaica, was the Caribbean region, where it was inhabited by the Taino culture. This culture of people, and I'm going to say along with their land, was subdued into slavery and death, being marauded by the French and Spaniard unions. Added Christopher Columbus, who brought the Spaniard flag forth on December 6, 1492, renaming the island of Haiti Hispaniola, aka Little Spain, which led to the demise of these ungodly guys via the Haitian Revolution. I like to call it the Haitian Cuban Revolution. Or, better yet, the Haitian Cuban Jamaican Revolution. How about that? No, I won't go too deep, but just deep enough for one to eat. Now, this Haitian Revolution was a revelation, a declaration, and an epidemic of inspiration for and of its time, being one of the most gruesome but most successful freedom movements in the histories of liberation documented in time. See, the Western Hemisphere, aka the Caribbean region, became one of the only places where melanated people in 1791. Hold on, brothers and sisters, off the record for a minute, you know how I be. 1791. 17 plus 91 equals 108. Get the 0 out of here, and you have 1 and 8. 1 plus 8 equals 9. Or better yet, 1 plus 7 plus 9 plus 1 is 18. 1 plus 8 equals 9. Did the time of the 9 symbolize the time to change times in this movement, brothers and sisters? Now keep in mind, prior to 1791, the revolution was already birthed, because the minute them perpetrators jumped off them boats to bring that oppression shit, they had a fight on their hands. Even though we wasn't prepared for it, they had a fight on their hands. We ain't just lay down. And some people, they read these books, man, they got this history where it's like they just came and, and we just, nah. We was killing their ass too. We was doing some damn killing around there. They weren't the only ones killing. We was killing their ass before we ended up on the slave boats. We was killing their ass on the slave boats. On the way to the plantation. We was killing their ass on the plantation. They had to find ways to break us. Or temporarily break us. So I don't want y'all to think that we just laid down and say, yeah, Added in 1773. 1773. 9. But anyway, 1773. 3 sisters liberated St. Thomas, dethroning the Dutch, or shall I say Dutch masters, for nearly a year's time, until they were eventually, they got defeated and subdued by the Dutch again, but they was backed by the British. Of course, So even though In 1791, it really jumped off. The fight had already started before 1492. Now, back on the record, brothers and sisters. The Western Hemisphere became one of the only places where so-called slaves, after enough labor, backbreaking labor, ass-kickings, amputations, deaths, rapes, and so forth, decided that on August 14, 1791, it was over. The conception of the birth of a new nation had begun. The Haitian Cuban Jamaican Revolution, the uprising of the melanated people. The revolution ignited beyond the heights of previous attempts. And one of the main engines used to succeed in this movement was the power of unity. A revolution towards the uprising. August 22nd, 1791. 1,000 to 40,000 melanated species began to attack from various directions. Brutal ambushes, murderous attacks towards the oppressors. Thanks to Toussaint, Farzwan, thanks to Dessalines, thanks to Bookman Duty, and all who assisted the movement to freedom. By 1803 to nearly, or I'm going to say early 1804, Hispaniola became Haiti, and the melanated people had reclaimed freedom. Now, another engine that played a huge role in the stride towards freedom was the power of Voodoo. Yeah. Another engine that played a big role in the move towards liberation was the power of Voodoo. The Jamaican brother, Bookman Duty, who received his name, his slave name, Bookman, because he would always carry his spiritual book around, and in so many words, his slave master burnt the book onto his flesh, leaving him with the flesh burn mark of his book on his flesh, earning him the name Bookman. Duty, Bookman with a duty. Bookman played one of the main roles in orchestrating the movement through Voodoo. He made one of the main speeches during the time of orchestrating the movement through Voodoo, though he wasn't the only one. See, these suppressors or perpetrators had kidnapped slaves from various places in Africa. You know, places like Ghana, Togo, Congo, Senegal, which make me think of the Goree Islands, Benin. And these oppressors thought that they all shared the same language and culture, etc. But that was far from the truth, you know. Too many different species of melanated people. We had too many different cultures and species of people. But we did have one thing in common. We had similar worship in the ways we deal with nature and how we view worship in nature. Having a similar worship. So we had over 24 different species of melanated people and over 120 forms of language enslaved together, who had begun to understand the language spoken by the oppressors while also beginning to learn each other's dialect and rituals during the time where the oppressors would force the Catholic Church ways onto the slaves to accept and be baptized into, causing the slaves to disguise their acts of worship behind the names of the Catholic texts and the names of the saints, to where some of the slaves would function under the title they call Santeria. S-A-N-T-E-R-I-A, Santeria, for those who can't spell. Which means worship of saints in Spanish, So they would function under the title of the Catholic in order to disguise the practice of voodoo. Brothers and sisters, stay tuned for part 2. We're going to get just a little bit deeper. Just a little bit.